gym today.
Okay, welcome back, class. Well, I'm saying class, but welcome back, group, to our final session regarding, skills that we can kind of hone in on to be a better student, particularly test skills, right? Test strategies and study skills so that we can perform well in school. So our last session, we ended, and I want you guys to think about today's the day of the test. You're walking into the classroom. We've talked about when you get home, distractions that can, kind of get in the way of you studying for a test, especially a test for your least favorite subject, right? You guys have shared information about how you study or how you can remember things, right? Repetition. We had Quentin say repetition and memorization of flashcards. We had Matt saying, relating to real life and also using pictures. As Kanisha, was that you who said pictures? Pictures help you well in labeling them. And Melanie, you said recording because Spanish was, or not Spanish, but a foreign language was one of the hardest classes or difficult classes that you kind of was in. So recording, the language and also utilizing those definitions, right? Writing them down. So you guys have actually shared a lot of information, a lot of strategies that can be useful in school. So I want you guys to think of today's day as your test day, and you're walking in and, knowing what you know about what you studied and what you used to study. What are some of the emotions or feelings that you have prior to taking a test?
It could be a variety of stress. Wondering if you're going to do as well as you would like.
Okay.
Anxiety.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other?
In some cases, disappointment. You probably didn't study as much as you should have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share, Melanie?
They basically got
They
it.
got everything.
Yeah.
Stress, anxiety,
Or
disappointment. Confidence?
Could be confidence, you put that time in and feel.
What are some things that you can do to make you feel confident all the time prior to the test?
Studying.
Yeah.
That extra hour, a lot of times when you're in a test, and you get to that question, it's like, damn, I remember going over it. If I would have just went over my notes one more time, I would have remembered this question. So just being confident and just your ability to perform well, and just walking away from that study session with that extra look.
Okay. That's all good. Anybody else have anything else to share?
About studying?
About being able to feel confident when you walk into a class that you're getting ready to take a test into, especially the class that is your least favorable class.
Besides studying, just going over, speaking with your teacher about it.
Yeah, speak with the teacher.
Speak with the teacher. Ask. You don't have to ask for the question. You can ask, I've been studying this, I just want to know. Or maybe you can ask the teacher, hey, what do people usually have trouble with in these tests? And then you can go over and see if you know that area, that subject better than usually people do.
Not only that, but connection with your peers as well, because I know that maybe someone got more of something that I didn't get, and we can do a quick run over of what we're about to get into.
Quick pocket.
Yeah.
I think it was mentioned earlier too, networking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure somebody took that exam before me.
Yeah.
Or before us, and I can ask them, hey, do you remember what was on that exam? Happens all the time, but just to, not necessarily for cheating purposes, but just to be pointed in that extra right direction, get that extra comfort, that warm and fuzzy.
Or asking those hard questions.
Mm-hmm.
When the instructor asks, does anyone have any more questions? Knowing that you might have some uncertainty about the answer, but yet no one raises their hand. So everyone, or the majority, people just stay clueless just because they don't want to be that one to
raise their hand.
So that pressure. Yes.
Okay. So I want you guys to think about the classes that you're taking, and how you guys have taken a few tests this far and quizzes. And how often would you say that you prepare yourself enough to where you can walk into the classroom when there is a quiz or when there is a test? your anxiety and increase your confidence? How often would you say? You can say percentage-wise, 50% of the time, I'm feeling confident. I do the things that I need to do to feel confident when I walk into the test, so that anxiety doesn't have a negative effect on me and my mind goes blank as soon as I see the test, right? So how often would you say that you prepare yourself enough to be able to walk into the classroom with that feeling of confidence and kind of eliminate or reduce some anxiety about tests or taking the test?
I would say the majority of the time. I think a lot of times you go into an exam, and if you off the bat don't know what's on the exam, or you look at the test and you're like, I'm not prepared, you instantly downgrade yourself and say, I just want to pass the test. So I would say the majority of the times you're confident enough to go into an exam and pass it. When you start getting those extra feelings of anxiety and stuff like that, it's when you kind of overreached a little bit and didn't prepare for that overreaching.
Okay.
So
that sounds like a really good technique. So you're saying to use confidence as a technique, right? So is that something you guys maybe can try to make some? What are some things you can tell yourself to kind of psych yourself out to make you walk in feeling confident, even if you do, or if you are the one that just still feels anxiety?
It'll be over soon.
Is there something that you can think about in your mind that just kind of puts you in a happy place, maybe?
I know a lot of times for me is that you're not only one taking the test. To know that you're not the only one going through the same thing also helps.
Okay. So you saying 90%?
I'll say more than half.
More than half. So more than half, you're gonna say 60% of the time you can utilize that technique to walk in feeling confident no matter what, so that you can kind of make sure you don't let anxiety take over when you're taking the test?
Yeah, I think I go in the classroom, and just based on questions throughout that week, I can kind of gauge where I'm gonna fall at. And so I can go into a test and say, well, I know I'm gonna do better than half of the class. You know what I mean? Off the top of my head, that's what I would say. Because you could tell by how some people ask certain questions that, okay, I knew that off the top coming into class, and still people struggling with this going into the exam. And so I think a lot of people kind of gauge themselves where they'll fall. So some classes you would give that extra effort, that extra hour, that extra time to study, and then some classes you can kind of just fall in there. And those are usually the classes that you're a little bit more comfortable with off top, and it goes back to confidence. Comfortability kind of creates that tone of confidence.
Okay, so you'd say more than half of the time you can do just that prior to the test when you walk into the classroom. We're gonna say 60% of the time.
I'm content with that.
Okay. What about yourself?
I'll say about the same, maybe 60-70%. I don't want to go away being completely lost to be that one.
Okay.
So it does depend on the subject. If I am interested in it, then it'll come natural. But if it's one of my areas for improvement, then I definitely need to.
What's the percentage on those classes, would you say?
Probably like 55-50.
Okay, Kenisha?
I'm at 45%. I'm just gonna be honest. The majority of the time, I don't study because I have too much confidence. Oh, I already read through it. It's gonna be easy, and then I get in there and I'm like, yeah, I didn't study for this. All right. Well, I'm gonna guess. If it's multiple choice, it's easy for me. If it's an essay question, then I'm gonna have to take some time or skip over it and go over other questions and pick apart those other questions to answer that essay question. But I'm a survivor. I get through it.
So let's think about the times that you actually do utilize some of your strategies that you discussed earlier with, making sure you draw the pictures and making sure you, take chunks of paragraphs and kind of paraphrasing and asking the teacher questions or asking questions about what you read so that you can prepare yourself. How often would you say, what's the percentage of time you say that you actually utilize those tools and techniques that you were discussing?
Like everyone else, I only do that for classes I'm interested in, really interested in, like biology or math. I can continuously draw pictures, pies, everything. Whereas with English, I'm not gonna go the extra mile for English, but I always pass. I definitely got an A. Just so you know.
Melanie. Melanie.
I'd say 50%.
About 50% of the time?
Yeah.
So what if I was to, it sounds like kind of across the board we're in the 50s and 60 range, right? Kenesha, 45%. I appreciate the honesty. So is there something that you can tell yourself that you can do starting next week as a goal, a personal goal for yourself to increase that 50% to, let's say, 60%, or if you're at 60%, increase that 60% to, let's say, 65%. You know, baby, we're going to take small steps here. Is that something that you all would agree that it's something that you can kind of manage? Okay.
With prioritizing.
Yeah.
With prioritizing.
Leaving your friends behind or getting better friends.
I definitely agree with that.
Friends that like to study as well.
All right. So I think overall in the 3 sessions that we have had so far, we kind of covered, I think we covered a lot. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
Would you agree? And we talked about tools and techniques that each one of you guys use to help you study, to help you be a better student. We talked about ways that you can kind of reduce anxiety when you're going into a classroom and you have a test or a quiz or a project that may be worth a lot of points, or you just definitely want to be the better student and get better grades. And we even talked about the percentage of the time that you do those techniques that we discussed, right? So we're gonna end off our session here, and I want you guys to think about the strategies that we all discussed here. Maybe you can use the strategy that Melanie has discussed, or that Quentin has discussed, or Kenesha. You guys can kind of brainstorm and kind of test out these other strategies, especially with those classes that you find least favorable.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage you all to try to increase that percentage of time that you spend to make it better the next week, or even the next month, prior to school ending. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Do any of you guys have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I have something to say. I feel that we could all use the same tools to, for one thing, like let's say prioritizing, let's say drawing pictures. We could all use my definition so we can incorporate it in one. It's not just something you could use one. We could all bounce off of each other, networking.
Networking. And I hope that you guys do that moving forward when you go into your classes, kind of go into the class thinking about the different strategies that, work for Melanie, and try to incorporate it, see what results you get, and just try to hopefully improve slowly, taking small steps to kind of do better, or study more, so that you can always walk into the classroom feeling confident and knowing the material, and ultimately the end goal is to getting better grades, right? Acing everything, right? All right, so thank you guys for your time. I appreciated all that you had to share, and I loved hearing what you had to share, and I hope you guys enjoyed kind of sharing with each other.
Definitely. Thank you.
So about that large pizza.